We will finish the fourth Perek of Rambam's Shemonah Perakim. We've been covering for the past couple of weeks. This is our third part on the fourth Perek. And just as a brief overview, just to rehash what we've seen before, so the fourth Perek, in the fourth Perek, Rambam really deals with how does a person heal an ill neshama. That is to say, it's possible for a human neshama to go the wrong way, right, to be spiritually ill. And how do we correct that? So Rambam says it's about the golden mean. Take the path of moderation. Avoid either extreme. That's the way to do it. And last week we saw, okay, well, I mean, what does moderation look like? That's a very nice thing to say, but does that just mean avoid 5-course meals? I mean, that doesn't sound moderate, so maybe just don't do that. So last week we spoke and cited to a number of sources to indicate that moderation is not simply, some like nice airy-fairy concept where it's just like, yeah, just don't eat too much, don't eat too little, and just be normal. There's a Mishnah in Pirkei Avot, or at least a Braita, right? We spoke about that in the 6th Perek. I think it's a Perek 6, Mishnah 4, which says, Zohi Darkashal Torah, right? This is the way of Torah. Eat bread with salt, drink water in measure, sleep on the earth, live a life of deprivation, and be amal in Torah and toil in Torah. Now that does not sound like moderation. And at the end of the day, Rambam needs to contend with this Mishnah. The Mishnah comes first. The Mishnah takes precedence. How is Rambam going to work with this? So the way we understood this Mishnah was through the lens of Rashi, and as brought down by Rabbi Tatz and Rav Aaron Lichtenstein. So Rashi says is, this Mishnah isn't telling a wealthy person that he has to abandon his wealth and go make himself miserable. That's not the point. The point is, it shouldn't make a difference. And Rabbi Tatz really highlights this issue. He says, Rav Aaron Lichtenstein says, it's this world is not about enjoyment, right? That is not the perspective a Ben Torah is supposed to have. The whole idea of a mill, right, of toiling, right, of working hard, being engaged in this world. What's the point? It's in order to engage Torah, and that could be through learning or through pursuing mitzvahs. But the idea is your whole perspective should be set through the Torah. And Rabbi Tatz explains that what this means, what this mission is trying to tell us is the Torah and materialism are antithetical to each other. They do not work together. It's okay to engage the material world. Rav Aaron Lichtenstein also says this. He's like, I'm not saying that you can't ever enjoy a good meal. That's not the point. The point is, what is your basic perspective? It's about detachment from the material. It's not about abstention from the material. It's not about never enjoying ever. It's about, what's your perspective? Does it make a really big difference to you whether or not we're going to have this amazing, like, luxurious meal or not? If it does make a difference, then that's the way to be. That is the path of moderation. The material world has no intrinsic value except to engage Torah and mitzvahs. That's the point. Now, that's very nice that we say that. Does Rambam say that? I mean, that's how we're explaining moderation, but is that, where can we see the Rambam actually articulating this thought? So we'll see it in actually the very next few paragraphs of the Shemonah Perakim, of the fourth Perek of the Shemonah Perakim. So here's what he says. So v'husha Torah lo asra ma she'asra v'lo tzifta ma she'tzifta elo mipnei zot hasiba r'tzono lomar k'dei shenitrachek min hatzad ha'echad yoter al hatzad ha'hergel. Right, the Torah did not lay down its prohibitions or enjoin its commandments except for just this purpose, namely that by its disciplinary effects we may persistently maintain the proper distance from either extreme. Now that doesn't really tell us very much. Does he have anything else to say? And the answer is yes. So just going down in English, it says, all of these God commanded in order that we should keep entirely distant from the extreme of the inordinate indulgence of the passions, and even in departing from the exact medium, should incline somewhat towards self-denial, so that there may be firmly rooted in our souls the disposition for moderation. So here Rambam is clearly saying, don't go to the extremes. If you choose to go to extremes, then the way you should do it is enjoy the material world less. And I suspect, and this is me speaking, not Rambam, he doesn't say this explicitly, but that's probably because we have a tendency of kind of engaging the material more. Once you have exposure to it, it's very difficult to control yourself. One piece of cake might lead to 2 pieces of cake, or having this cake might mean you might want a tastier cake for next time. The idea is, it really just it kind of spirals out of control. So Rambam is like, enjoy it less. That's the way you can kind of stay moderate and keep things in perspective. And moreover, and this is really fleshed out and much more explicitly as he goes on and says, if you should test most of the commandments, most of the mitzvahs, from this point of view, you would find that they are all for the discipline and guidance of the faculties of the soul. Now, this is an amazing idea that Rambam is laying out here. He says explicitly, the whole point of mitzvahs is to properly orient our engagement with the material. The material world has no intrinsic value. Its only value is in order to pursue, to fulfill our potential and live life in the way that God wanted us to live it. And here he goes and says, okay, so let's start looking at character traits we have. For example, many of us tend to be naturally stingy. That's pretty natural. So what does the Torah do? And the Rambam literally lists all of these mitzvahs. He says, well, you have the mitzvah of Yovel, you have the mitzvah of Shemitah, where you can't work your land, you have to let your land lie fallow, and anything that grows on it is hefker. Anybody can enjoy it, right? We have to leave the pear at the corners of our fields. We can't pick anything for the first few years. We have the mitzvah of giving tithes, right, to the Kohanim and to the Levim and to the poor, and bring it to Jerusalem. All of these specific mitzvahs on how we're supposed to use our money. And the idea is that you're supposed to leave stinginess and become so extra generous that you will eventually be inclined towards moderation. Okay, well, is that it? No, Rambam keeps going. He's like, how about a person's natural propensity for anger or for wrath? Well, in order to weaken that, what do? You can't bear a grudge. You can't take revenge. You see someone you hate who has a donkey that needs to be unloaded, go help him. Or a person who needs help loading, go help him. So that again is to bring us, instead of becoming an angry person, just be more calm, more easygoing. Don't be so angry at people. Someone you hate, great, go help them before your friend. How about a person who likes to kind of get in people's faces, is all bold? Listen to you. You have to respect your parents. That tends to be a humbling experience, right? Respect the elderly. There are all these mitzvahs, or even there's an injunction to listen to what the Sanhedrin says. We don't always get to hold by our opinions. This is how I understand the Torah. Yes, but it's not how they understand the Torah, and they're the ones who are paskening, and therefore we have to adhere to what they're saying. Or how would a person's desire to kind of accumulate goods? How do we deal with that? Well, you have to return lost objects. Find someone's lost cattle, you have to return it. This is, you can't just go around collecting, looking for things that are yours that you can take. Or how would a person's desire to be more familiar with women? Again, many prohibitions in this matter, and not outside of marriage. Even within marriage, there are specific prohibitions. And so Rambam here is showing, he's like all these physical tendencies that we have, they need to be directed to a proper purpose. But then Rambam goes further in the next paragraph, and he says, what about a person who's too shy? Now here we're saying, like, you have to stop being so greedy, stop trying to hoard all your money, stop trying to enjoy too much. Okay, how about a person who's naturally bashful? He doesn't want to get involved. You have to give tochacha. That's a mitzvah min Torah. It says it explicitly. So a shy person can't just hide behind. It's like, boldness isn't good. That's not for me. Well, the Torah says you have to give tochacha. You see someone doing something wrong, go speak to them about it. You don't get to just get a pass just because you happen to incline more towards being shy. So kind of fear the false prophet. That's another mitzvah that Rambam brings up. And all this to say, what Rambam is clearly trying to articulate is the mitzvahs are trying to teach us moderation. Now, what is moderation? It's looking at our lives, at our energy, at our attitudes, at our strengths, right, and even our weaknesses, at the resources we have at our disposal. All of those things are meant in order to help bring out Torah precepts, in order to learn them, to teach them, to actualize them, and to make them happen, and to help other people. We're supposed to be doing chesed for others. All those things are meant to flow outwards and not only inwards. And moreover, Rambam keeps saying, he's like, and just so we understand, and actually this flows with this week's parsha, that is to say, at the very beginning of Matot, we talk about Shavuot and Adarim, and he quotes a Gemara that says, what are you doing taking on extra prohibitions? You don't have enough prohibitions in the Torah? Don't go around taking more prohibitions. That's very interesting. Like, why shouldn't you take on more prohibitions? Maybe that's a good thing. And Rambam's like, no. Here's a Mamra Chazal. There's a Gemara that says this. Don't go around taking more prohibitions. What do you need them for? You have enough from the Torah, and just go on and live your life and do what you need to do to live in God's world. And then finally, he keeps going and he says, כן האדם השלם צריך לו שיזכור מילותיו תמיד וישקול פעולותיו ויבחן תכונת נפשו יום יום. Right? A person needs to do a daily accounting. What am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? Where am I tending more towards one extreme? וכל מה שיראה נפשו נוטה לצד קצה מן הקצוות. Right? If a person sees himself tilting more towards one extreme, ימהר ויפרוע ולא יניח את תכונה הרעה להתחזק. Right? So he's saying, like, whenever you see a bad midah, a bad character trait that's starting to express itself in you, quash it right away. So you need to recognize it on a daily basis, make sure it doesn't allow itself to repeat, and build a muscle so that it becomes much more difficult to overcome as time moves on. And so this is a completion of the fourth Perek. This teaches us, how does a person heal a soul? You have to walk through the path of moderation. The path of moderation is the idea of detaching ourselves from the material, seeing no intrinsic value in engaging in the material world, other than pursuing the mitzvahs, as the mitzvahs themselves say. What's the point of having material wealth? In order to share it with other people. Is it good to be bold? Well, you have to give tochacha, but not too much, because you have to respect other people, you have to respect your parents, you have to respect the elderly. All this is really meant to just kind of flesh out our attitude and our perspective towards life, towards our daily routine. How do we go about living in this world? We'll end it there. Shabbat Shalom.